Right, we are officially live. I might just wait a minute or two to see if Sarah and David Bull sign in. They might just be having some tech issues getting connected, and we'll be on the way pretty soon. In the chat window, I did post a link, the first item in the chat window, to the agenda page, if you haven't got that handy. And I will be using, or I suggested that we use the OERu hashtag as our back channel if anyone remotely is wanting to post. That way we have an open record rather than in the internal chat of Hangouts on M. I'm wondering if we shouldn't just get started with the introductions so far. For anyone that is viewing, just if you're not familiar with the structure of the OERu and how we operate, we have 7 working groups, and the conveners of each of the working groups serve on the OERu Management Committee, which is this meeting, as a mechanism to help coordinate the activities across the OERu. And the key responsibility of the OERu Management Committee is to provide oversight of the implementation of our operational priorities from the strategic plan. So by way of quick summary, that's the purpose of this meeting. It's now the 4th meeting of the OERu Management Committee, and our first meeting this year. So let me start with the introductions, and given that I have Dave there on the list, I'll hand over to you in a moment. First, Dave. Dave Lane has been recruited as our open source technologist, and I'd like to acknowledge our gold tier partners, in particular Quantum Polytechnic University, the University of Southern Queensland, the University of Highlands and Islands, Otago Polytechnic, and of course the OER Foundation, who are all contributing financially to this shared position. And we were very chuffed to be able to recruit the caliber of expertise of Dave. You would have seen the announcement. Dave is the current president of the New Zealand Open Source Society and has 20+ years of experience in the open source world. So Dave, if you don't mind, I'd like to hand over to you to kind of, so introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself and, hey, why you decided to join our family.
Well, hello, everyone. It's very, very exciting to be here with you all, and I'm still finding my feet, having started this role yesterday, but I'm just excited about the opportunity to be working in an organization that has such a strong affinity for me with regard to open source focus and focus on access to everyone and the ability to reuse and build on the work of others rather than people trying to lock things up for their own personal gain. So yeah, this is very exciting to be able to find so many like-minded folk. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to make use of some of the many years of behind-the-scenes development work and system administration and so on that I've done. Some of it being done despite the fact that most of my responsibilities prior to this role have been more managerial. I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and getting my hands dirty and building new ways and better ways for everyone to collaborate and to share.
Thanks, Dave, and again, a very warm welcome on joining our family. It's great to have you on board.
I'm honored.
Erwin, I'm going to hand over to you, and in part this is also for the benefit, I mean, we all know each other within this group, but it's also for benefit for the folk who might be viewing the recording of the broadcast. So, Erwin, I'm going to hand over to you for introductions.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll just make a little side note. I've just been DMing with Brian Lamb. Oh, okay, he just got in now. He's been trying to get in, so he'll show up shortly. Yeah, so my name is Erwin DeVries, and I head up curriculum development for Thompson Rivers University Open Learning. and we're a founding anchor partner of the OERu, and my role has been involved in a number of ways. As part of my department's responsibility in curriculum development, we've developed or adapted 2 courses now, 2 full courses into the OERu, and also I'm on several different parts of the management committee. We developed the first draft of the user's manual, and now we're on, I believe it's the partner engagement committee, so I'm a very enthusiastic and keen participant in all of this.
Yes, thanks for that, Owen. As you know, as we decided at the previous meeting, the work of the Partners Manual group is now being subsumed in this new group that has been constituted, the Partner Engagement Group. So we are, of course, very pleased to have the depth of your experience helping to shape these futures. So now I'd like to hand over to Professor Jim Taylor, one of the thought leaders of the OERu since its very foundations. So, Jim?
Well, as Wayne mentioned, I've been involved right from the beginning. My institution, the University of Southern Queensland, has been involved and very keen on this initiative for a number of years now. I'm also a member of the OER Foundation Board, and very keen that we continue to make the progress that we've made in a very short time. So I look forward to working with everyone, and I'm especially pleased that we've got so many new members of the working groups to get involved and get the show on the road, as it were. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Jim. Yes, there's been a big increase. We have it in the participation in the working groups. We now have 70+ seats allocated in the working groups distributed across our partners. So that's a very exciting development at this phase of our journey. Mark, if I can hand over to you, I imagine early evening in New Jersey, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. But it's a reasonable hour still, so that's all right. Yeah, my name is Mark Singer. I'm at Thomas Edison State College in New Jersey. That's right, and I'm apparently the new convener for the Standing Committee for Credit Transfer. Am I getting that right?
Okay. Correct, Mark. Yes, the Standing Committee for Credit Transfer. Correct.
That's right. I was operating or trying to operate the Prior Learning Assessment or PLAR committee, and that's been subsumed under this new umbrella. So I'm looking forward to. I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, the connections are much more clear now. So I'm looking forward to getting started with that.
Okay, so I had a note from David Porter, who mentioned he's in transit between meetings and he'll pop in as soon as he can. I don't see Brian yet, Owen.
Yeah, I just got a DM from him. I think he has an observer link. Do you want to just send him an invitation?
Yeah, I sent that out. Let me just send out another invite again.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that. And
okay.
I think we might be, whether Sarah is not experiencing the same challenge. Right, I sent that invite out to Brian, and let me just resend the link to Sarah in case you missed it.
Okay, I let Brian know that it's on the way.
Cheers. All right, so we'll see if Brian and Sarah pop in. In the meantime, let's continue with the agenda. Item number 3 on the agenda is about the review allocation of the 2015 KPIs. So within the strategic plan, we have a whole bunch of key performance indicators for 2015. And as you know, our strategic plan is an evergreen strategic plan that we adapt and tweak and modify as we're going on. And you know, as we look at our key KPIs, I suspect some of them we will exceed, and the others we won't quite reach the mark. And so, for example, we've already exceeded the KPI for building a 0.5 FTE for the open source community model. Now that Dave has joined us, so we're pleased that we've exceeded at least one of our KPIs at this stage of the journey. What I'm hoping, what I'm planning to do here is to set up a page in the wiki where each of the conveners of our individual working groups go through the list of KPIs and see which ones apply to that specific working group. Obviously, there will be some overlap with some of the KPIs where we'll have more than one group actually working as KPIs. But I'd like to request that each of our conveners go through the KPIs and see which of those KPIs are relevant to their specific working groups. And I'll set up a page in the wiki for us to do that. Are there any questions or comments on this point? If not, I'll take silence to mean assent and move on to the next agenda item. And it seems that we have consensus on that point, so I'll get that page up in the wiki pretty soon. Item 4 on the agenda is to take feedback from our individual working groups and really to have an initial think and sharing of the outputs our individual working groups would like to achieve by the next partners meeting. As far as I know, the only working group that has convened so far this year is the strategic planning group. So I'm going to hand over to Jim. We met at the end of May, and so Jim, if you could just give us an update there.
Sure, Wayne. I think again, consistent with the evergreen planning approach, at the meeting we reviewed and refined the aims and objectives of the group, and I think they were shared generally with the report of the key outcomes, key decisions that we made. And I'll just highlight a few of them because you may have already, had a look at them on the wiki. But I think in terms of key developments, where one of the issues is that the strategic planning group is having to be able to help coordinate the work of the other working groups. And we decided in doing that we'd have a management committee meeting before the end of June, which we've just managed today, and then to try and coordinate the groups by the development of an action calendar was one of the things. Now this item's number 6 on the agenda, so I won't dwell on that, but I think we need a few milestones that we can all be working towards, and that's from a strategic planning group's point of view, particularly the case with the current course development list, and the aim to get enough product, if you like, available to enhance the credibility of what we're doing. So in terms of operational priorities, and this was reflected in the meeting in Hobart at the end of last year, we feel that we need to try and get a coherent course development and delivery list established. So we need not just an indication of course delivery, but I think we're at a point now where we can set delivery dates and try and get a coordinated program with one of the emphases again is on the first year of study, and I'm sure that will come up for discussion. The other thing that we were trying to do was in the action items, is to keep the quick links page as an easy access for new people in the program, or you want to find out what's happening with each of the working groups, so you've got a ready reference for the planning structure, the operational priorities. So again, trying to keep the quick links page updated is a way of trying to get more coordination between the groups, so that when we come to this review of KPIs that Wayne mentioned, we'd also develop operational priorities and try and keep that linked, as you see, as Wayne has highlighted on the page there. The final comment that I'd make is in relation to what is not a new initiative, but an initiative that's being highlighted in the remainder of this year, which was to get more work done on the open business models initiative, and linking up with Paul Stacey and Creative Commons to do that, and to have 2 regional meetings to address that issue. And I think getting a focus to help the CEOs in the network to embed open practice and embed OERu in the activities, and the work that we do later in the year on open business models, I see as a sort of key development there. So I think there's plenty of opportunity to contribute here through the groups, and hopefully the strategic planning group can act as a sort of facilitator for achieving the KPIs across the board for OERu, and keeping the annual report and the engagement of the CEOs going as well. So that's an update, Wayne, and thanks for that.
Thanks, Jim. And just to point out, I actually have done the update. I've been doing a bit of wiki gardening, and have updated the quick links page, which now links to all the current links, and done a bit of tidying up on the main planning page, which of course should help newbies coming into the site. So thanks for that, Jim. I see Brian and Sarah have joined us, and just for the benefit of the recording, Brian, if you could just introduce yourself.
Brian is saying he can't hear anything, and so is Sarah. So it looks like Brian. Yeah.
I'm sitting wondering if they still got this session that they joined as a viewer running, as opposed to. They
joined on the viewer link, and then I sent them the invitation that you sent me, which was the direct invitation, and so I sent that to Brian and Sarah. So I think they used that to get in, but it sounds like neither one of them gets audio on that for some reason.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not sure what that challenge is. Well, at any rate, I can. Oh, there it looks like Sarah is coming in. Sarah,
hello.
Can you hear her?
Hello there. Third time lucky. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, Sarah. So maybe if you just do a quick introduction of yourself and.
Yeah, sure. Hi everybody. It's Sarah Lambert here from the University of Wollongong, and I manage our open education program here, and I'm the convener of the Quality and Approvals Working Group for OERu, and it's great to be here today.
Thanks for that, Sarah. I think Brian is going to try and log in again to see if we can get his audio issues sorted. I suspect that Google is still remembering his session where he tried to join as a viewer as opposed to a member of the broadcast, but we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I had to come in two or three times before I could hear anything, and it was a bit odd. But anyway, third time lucky.
Yeah. Glad you could join us, and you've come in at the perfect time. Not quite. I'm getting confused here because the next item on the agenda is the curriculum and program of study group, and I'm co-convening this group with David Bull. And I mean, the purpose of this group is really to develop a coherent program of study with multiple exit points. And I suspect we haven't had a meeting yet this year, but we are really going to try and progress the completion of a first year of study to prioritize, the courses that we select, in addition to all the nominations that we've received thus far. We'll also, there's another agenda point later, so I won't speak to that now, around updating the course development schedule. So I'll leave that for the time being. But we are hopeful that by the end of this year, in preparation for our meeting, we will have a program document around the development of the first year of study for the OERu. At this point, if there are no comments, I'd like to hand over to Erwin de Vries, who is co-convening the Partner Engagement Working Group.
I don't have much to add at this time. David and I have not yet met to determine what our next steps will be, but I'm actually seeing him on Friday, so we'll be catching up there. I do see that the group has grown somewhat from what I can gather. So I don't really have much in addition to report right now.
Yeah, I have to say the Partner Engagement Group is by far the most popular working group on the list, and that's a good sign.
Yes.
So at this point, Mark, if I can, it looks like Brian's audio might be resolved now because I see his mic mute icon. So, Brian, I don't want to give your audio a try. It looks like there's still some issues there. So, at this point, if I can just hand over to Mark Singer, who is convening the Standing Committee for Credit Transfer. What we've at the previous meeting we tabled, and this was an output of the former Credit Transfer and Course Articulation Working Group to develop a set of guidelines for credit transfer. And so we have the draft set of guidelines, and some of the thinking is around getting more conversation around those guidelines, particularly input from registrars. So, Mark, let me hand over to you there.
Sure. Unfortunately, I don't have much to report on that myself. I've only come to the document fairly recently. So I think the next step is going to be for me to review it. It's not well. It's a couple of pages long, but what I think I'd like to do is highlight some of the areas which probably require more comment than others, and then circulate those among the committee members. It seems like I think if we do a little bit more targeted work, it might be a little bit more helpful. Perhaps Wayne and I can review that if you think it's appropriate.
Yeah, and Mark, I went through the new members of the Standing Committee for Credit Transfer, and we do have one or two sort of registrar type folk that are part of this group, which is going to help us tremendously. Because, I mean, as we discovered previously, I mean, there are differences, for example, in terms of how credit transfer works in the US as opposed to, other parts of the world, and we need to, think about these virtual mobility, challenges and what that means for the OERu.
Yeah, exactly. So it might be good to convene the registrars separately. I don't, not to exclude them from interactions with others, but they might be able to focus more on some of the more technical aspects, technical challenges we might see.
Yeah.
So I'll get that started.
Cheers. Thanks, Mark. And at this point on the agenda, I'd like to hand over to Sarah, who is convening the Course Approval and Quality Working Group.
Thanks, Wayne. We had a good year last year and developed our design blueprint and quality standards outputs for 2014 with a very large group, and I've had about half of those group continue in 2015, and then a bunch of new partners join as well, which is great. And we're just negotiating the date of our first meeting for the 8th, 9th or 10th of July. And I think that our conversation will be around what expectations are, and it will be good to get some feedback here about the notion of our goal is to publish the guidelines, and to an extent that we published them in the wiki last year, that's been done. So what's the expectation and understanding of the word publish in this context? Would be great to have some feedback on. But for myself, we still need to see these design blueprints as the priority, because we haven't really got to the point where there's enough courses are mature to need a review cycle, which is what the standards will do. So really focusing on the blueprint as a way to design quality in, getting those understood and embraced by the design teams that are actually designing OERu courses in a timely way, and getting them enough support so that they can get benefit from them and also feel free to modify them. They're not a straitjacket, but they're a you know, a nice starting point of a kind of a boilerplate of template. And at this point, I don't think we've had enough use of them by design teams coming in to be able to, if you like, confirm and refine them in this cycle. So I think what I'd like to see is the use and refinement, so that we can really feel sure that it's working for new designers and more experienced designers, and look at the support side of things.
Yeah. And I think also, Sarah, I'm just chipping in here, you know, with the growth of the folk who are interested in joining this group, it might actually be a good idea to have them actually review the drafts that we have developed so far, you know, as a way for them to get up to speed and, you know, identify areas of refinement. I think would be a very good thing to do. And we also ran the prototype course for the digital skills for collaborative OER development, which actually implements these, you know, blueprinting. And I'm thinking of that we should maybe run a second instance of that micro open course again in the second half of the year. So we can chat a little bit about that later.
Yeah, I would be really supportive of that, and it was a great way to see the templates starting to be used. And then there's some connecting the dots between each of these groups here about creating that common page for where all of the, like a hub for where all the links to the new developing courses go, because I'm at that point where people may be using them, but I'm not sure they're using them, so I can't reach out and ask for feedback and so on. So thinking through that process too, of just connecting the dots, maybe people are using them, we just don't know.
Yeah. And we have a related agenda item a little bit further down, point number 5, where we will actually be, you know, taking
Yes.
that suggestion forward.
Yes, great.
So,
Yes,
Brian,
that's all from me.
I notice in the chat that you are hearing us now, so not sure if we can hear you, so we might just give that a try.
Hello.
There we go.
Yes.
You can hear me? Okay, good.
Yay.
I apologize for all the mess up. Third browser was the charm. Yeah, just to kind of blast through some of the things, we've been doing our regular meetings, and of course I think it's safe to say now that Dave has joined us, and particularly with his focus on the kind of open source partner development model and kind of coordinating activities across the group, I think it's safe to say that in the coming meetings we're going to be revisiting and refining the aims and objectives of the group and the makeup as well, given the people who made the institutions that made the contributions possible to get this position in place. So I think it's a time of kind of readjustment and refocusing. We got some great new capacity and expertise on board, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where that goes. So that'll be the role, I think, where I see this group headed. And then beyond that, as it says on the agenda as well, one of our aims is to recruit members from our partner institutions' marketing departments to just kind of get the integrated partners guide and support materials onto the site, and working on that from there. So I guess those are the big things. But it's been an interesting year. We got some good steps forward. I was really pleased with the WordPress snapshot theme that we saw developed for the OERu course that ran earlier, and some really great increased capacity in WordPress. And then with Dave aboard and working with Jim and the already existing group, I think we're going to be doing some interesting things in the weeks or the months ahead.
Yeah, thanks for that, Brian. And just to add, the way we set up this position is I requested that each of the platinum level partners who are contributing to the position to identify their key sort of IT contact person, who we will also invite to join the technology working group. So, it's kind of in our traditions of, being distinctively open. I mean, I think it's important that we, have this group functioning openly. So I'm also suggesting that Dave join the technology working group as a co-convener, so that we have the interface between sort of the integration of what we're doing with the campus technologies, operating transparently and openly, for the whole consortium. So that will be an update in terms of the structure there. So I've had a chat with both Brian and Dave, and that looks like a good way to move this forward. So any comments from the floor? Again, I'll take silence to mean assent. Okay. So the next item on the agenda, point number 5, is the current course development and delivery schedule. And I guess this is in part a maturation issue. Historically, in the past, what we've done is each year we've had a call for nominations. So, we had the 2012, 2013 nominations for prototype courses, and then we had the 2014 call for courses, and we will no doubt have a 2015 call. And as a result, we've now got a number of pages with course nominations, from different years, and it's not that easy to actually see this, the state of these developments and what courses we're working on. And so the suggestion is that we create a central page and rather have a page of current and active course developments, rather than these separate nomination pages for each year. And we'll set up a new page in the wiki and start transferring all that information over to a central page. So at this point, let's open up the floor if there's agreement to do that, and then we can figure out how to get it done.
Well, I'm in strong agreement. I find that it's really going to support the work of the working group that I'm chairing, the course approvals and quality, if we can access where everyone's up to, because one of the core reasons and one of the core notions of quality as we defined in the working group is around how we can clearly communicate across the network as to how each of the courses is going, so as to allow that peer review and feedback cycle, and we really can't do that well if people are just lost and not able to find where things are up to in the wiki.
Yeah, I'm nodding my head as in agreement.
Cool.
Any other comments and feedback on this point? And I think it's just really a question of getting this done. The other challenge we have.
Jim, just a quick comment.
Sure.
I think we need to tie the course development, and we added delivery schedule, because I think we need to try and focus on when we can actually get a program of study. So I come back to the work of the curriculum and program of study group. I think it's important that they too have a focus on how coherent the offerings are across institutions, and I think that's a key area for the future or current and future credibility of OERu. So the emphasis on the first year of study plus the other initiatives that are occurring, I think this is a key element that would become a key part of the Quick Links initiative, so that if we can create a new quick link to this, then I think it will help everyone coordinate that work. Thanks.
That's a really good point, and one of the things I struggled with, because I attempted to do a hub for at least the 2014 nominations last year as part of the templating process, and it was just hard to know how to present that, whether it was done by, you know, the name of the course or the name of the university. But in reflecting on what you're saying, Jim, I think it would be so much better if the structure was, if we could do it in delivery quarters. So who is going to be putting up their hand to aim to deliver this course in, you know, this next quarter, so that we can see and also can balance that out. And if we have gaps and we have nothing coming through in a quarter, we can put out an additional call and encourage people, and people that are close, we might be able to band together and push that stuff over the line. So maybe the notion of quarters or some time period could be the heading that the courses sit under. We could therefore get both of those objectives in the one web page, perhaps.
Yes, Sarah, I agree. I think it's a good idea. So we'll need to have a good think about the best way to present that page, and I might bounce a couple of drafts among some of the folk that have got more experience with, you know, wikis and this sort of thing, to have a look at, you know, the best way for us to present that in a meaningful way, and, you know, that we can keep it updated. So yeah, I think these are great suggestions. And we will get this done, because it's a key component of our future success. And related to this point is that, you know, a challenge we've had in the past is our individual partners keeping or updating the corporate website, the main OERu website, vis-a-vis the, you know, target dates for completion and delivery dates and that sort of thing, because we advertise that information publicly on the corporate site. And the way we've managed this in the past is that each partner institution has assigned a CMS administrator who has password access to the main corporate CMS sites. So maybe we need to do a little bit of shoulder tapping there, and maybe a little bit of training and support, and showing people, you know, how to keep that site information up to date. So we might need an extra working group there, that people actually appreciate and realize that they, you know, who can update their own pages.
Wayne, might I suggest the 180 sort of a completely flipped strategy, and that is, would it be possible to call for a volunteer through the network to be the dedicated CMS updater? Because I actually think that we're quite spread thin, and that's a piece of technology that, as a designer, you only need to use it very infrequently, and it's the return on investment for getting your head around it is not that great for all the separate individuals. Whereas if we had one or two people, like a main and an alternate, who volunteered, and that was part of their partner contribution, I think that we would get a much greater quality outcome, and a much less stress on the individuals who are having to do another piece of technology, when I think they're really quite often quite already bending their heads around the technologies that we already have.
Yeah, Sarah, I think that's a good suggestion. We might actually do both. You know,
yes, it doesn't preclude anyone from who wants to do it, but for myself, having gone through this cycle, it was always that you just don't do it frequently enough to get any return on investment for the time you spend working it all out, and even the basic things like where do you save your password and all of that stuff. So those are just the sorts of things that becomes minor irritants potentially. Yeah.
You know, that's a good suggestion. I think if we have both approaches, that would be good, because there are a number of partners who actually want to take ownership and, you know, management and control of the actual pages, and I think we should, you know, allow that as part of our culture, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Wayne, this is Mark, and I would just like to say that yeah, either one would work for us. But in the meantime, the person at Thomas Edison who was designated as our you know, the person who could handle the website is not really clear on how to proceed. We've developed several courses and have not figured out a way to somehow post them or link them to the website. So yeah, we'd be eager to have some option for either learning it ourselves or some sort of webinar or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point, Mark. I'm sitting wondering whether we shouldn't use this instance because you've got a number of courses you want to get up there. That we work together in developing a sort of a resource page which tells folk about about how to do this, and you kind of I'm not sure this is the right word, but you guys could sort of be surrogate learners to help us polish that page.
So, yeah, we'd be motivated in this case as well because we actually do have something that that we would post. So there would be a positive result for us.
Oh, that's a good suggestion, Mark. I've made a note of that, and we'll definitely minute that. Thanks for that.
Okay.
So, any other comment or feedback from the floor in relation to the current course development schedule and the refinements we want to implement?
Yes, actually, if I could say something about that as well. I think Sarah's suggestions earlier are really excellent. They really suggest there's a great opportunity for much more collaboration among the partner institutions than we've seen up till now. Not just allowing us to check on the progress that others have made, but as I think Wayne we've discussed, I've been talking to the folks at UNISA about something that goes a little bit beyond simply checking on one another's progress, but actually loaning one another expertise in assessment development or content development, that sort of thing. So those pages may also provide an opportunity for us to pitch in with one another, either because somebody's languishing in their development of their courses, or because we have a particular interest, a shared interest in some subject area, or maybe even further down the line, because each of us will, many of us will customize the course offerings that are, made available through the OERu. We might be able to share the extent to which we are customizing or bringing in other tools, for our version of those courses. So some sort of almost a clearinghouse, approach might be useful as well. Based on what Sarah was suggesting for that collaborative idea.
Yeah. I'm very excited by that potential and opportunities for the future. And Mark, the research that you and Dave Porter did around activity theory, I think one of the key recommendations coming out of that is different partners have different skills and capacities and capabilities that they bring to the network, and we should be thinking about how we can leverage that potential, rather than having this model of everybody's contributing to courses in exactly the same way, to see how we can better position this network based on the strengths of individual partners, right? And so I'm really hoping that the partner engagement group will pick that up as a tangent for the focus of their work.
That's really nice to get that feedback, Mark, and just to add to that, at the moment Wollongong is attempting a collaboration with Northwest University in South Africa around a research methods subject. I've just posted in the side notes of the chat the URL to that page, and one of the simple things that this the first sort of page in the blueprinting template does is just clearly say who is involved in this mission and what exactly we're trying to do. And so in this listing you'll see names from 2 different universities and a rough sketch of where we're up to. So we also are asking ourselves the same question about how Wollongong, which is a little bit further along with its course development experience, might be able to facilitate some of the capacity building with staff at Northwest, and in a kind of an action learning way, having a real focus, which is maybe we can have a contribution of, say, one of the modules in this research methods subject might be contributed through Northwest, and Wollongong might do the others, or in fact Wollongong might do all, and then we might facilitate a customization that suits exactly what they're trying to achieve, which is similar but never quite the same. So yeah, absolutely, and the wiki is great for that. Really good for it.
I see what you've done. It's terrific. This is a great start. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, I'm very excited about the potential of these kinds of collaborations within the network, because to be quite candid, this is our key point of difference.
Yeah.
When compared to these other collaborations and associations that are out there working in this open online course space. And in this regard, we're having very fruitful discussions between Thompson Rivers University, Otago Polytechnic, and now Portage College, and including BC Campus, around developing a shared micro-open online course in culinary arts, which will be have a strong vocational education focus, but again the potential of having the shared OERu course taught on multiple campuses, interfacing with a large international audience, and should be a very good demonstrator project if we can move that forward. Erwin, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that development, because BC Campus, they also have got a project developing a series of open textbooks in culinary arts, and they have a large database of or an item bank for objective item assessments in the disciplines. So there are strong synergies of how a non-teaching partner like BC Campus can potentially engage here as well, just building on this theme. So Erwin, I'm not sure if you want to add anything there.
I think you summarized most of it, other than it was really interesting and gratifying to have that discussion. And at a certain point, we did have a Skype call between some culinary faculty here and some culinary faculty in Dunedin, and it was really nice to hear instructors talking to instructors about their curricula and how they might possibly come up with sort of an internationalized curriculum that would meet both their goals, because these are both certified trades within our respective countries. So it'll be an interesting discussion, because we have run a few times now into the question of the internationalization of our courses. For instance, trying to see how we might credit the Psych 2111 course. We did build it primarily for ourselves, and so we find that there are certain, for instance, components of the course relating to to research methods that are specific to Canada. And so I think in the end, a lot of it might just be where we try to get faculty talking to each other to try to resolve those problems rather than just work in our silos. So this relates to the bigger question that Sarah was talking earlier about, in terms of learning, slowly expanding our ways of communication. And I think at some point, seeing the communication growing between instructors, developers, learning designers, and so on, centered around their disciplines, I think that would be a huge step forward for the OERu.
Yeah, that's really great, Erwin. I agree, and it's nice to hear that you've got a kind of a reuse conversation happening as well. And the other level of communication that I'm starting to see here at Wollongong around, again, this research methods course, is that the project officer I have on it naturally contacted some of our colleagues in another faculty here at Wollongong who she had just heard anecdotally had, the best research methods course, and explained this whole mission that we're undertaking here for an open version, and this person, now 2 people, have openly shared their course materials with us, and so that's sort of enabling a sort of a kind of sharing and very informal benchmarking across 2 different faculties here internally, which probably would not have happened otherwise either. So there's some very interesting flow benefits from this process when you explain the mission and take the time to make people feel comfortable to be part of it.
Right, and I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the key things that we need to learn even more, and I think we already have to a fair extent by our engagement with OERu, is its capacity for stimulating institutional transformation or innovations, building new connections. And another example is I'm quite heavily involved with the development of an online Masters of Education with our School of Education, and so we've collaborated, Brian's been involved with that, collaborated on putting together one stream in there specifically on what we're calling open and connected learning. And So I have no doubt that we will be having a lot more discussions with the people like you, Sarah, and others about seeing how we can somehow embrace the OERU in that particular stream. And I know that our education faculty, once they got used to the concept, are actually have become quite excited about it.
Yeah, great.
Thanks.
Oh, I'm so excited to hear these sort of organic projects and developments and initiatives taking place. It's a justification again of the power of the open model. By working transparently and getting to see what everybody's doing, these opportunities for doing some interesting things that we weren't able to do before, to come into play. So we're really pushing the future forward here in terms of open sourcing education in ways that are going to benefit each of our partner institutions. So these are exciting developments, and I'm wondering if there's a way we can perhaps tell these stories through showcases at the OERu meeting, for example, where we can just show people some of the things that are these organic projects that are happening. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I think, sorry, Jimmy, I think that leads us neatly into the next item on the agenda about an action calendar. If you're ready to move on to that.
Yes, I am, and I did a little bit of work this morning in putting together a sort of a high-level action calendar, which is really to try and collate the key activities that we are working on and related milestones for the rest of the year. And I've started populating with some of the main items there. I mean, obviously, the end of June. This is our fourth meeting of the OERu Management Committee. So across July, I mean, I think what needs to be happening there are the individual working group meetings to determine basically the output targets for this year for reporting back at the OERu Partners meeting in October, and particularly also for the new groups that have been constituted to have that discussion around the aims and objectives, as well as the existing working groups to revisit the aims and objectives to see if they need any tweaking or refinement. And so hopefully each of our working groups will be able to convene during July. So what I've also done there is our regular technology meetings, I've scheduled them in there. So I'm extending an invitation to each of our working group conveners to populate this action calendar with the relevant components of what your working groups are doing. I'm suggesting, this is a little bit late in the agenda, that our next meeting is the last week of July. So we can then report back on what we're aiming to achieve by the October partners meeting and any refinements to aims and objectives and the like. In August, there's a point on the agenda relating to this. We will be having a regional meeting for the open business models. A lot of activity, of course, in September in preparation for the annual partners meeting. We historically, every year, as part of our openness, have an open online seminar which is used to help shape the agenda. Last year we made the mistake that it sort of was running in conjunction with the vacation period in the Northern Hemisphere. So I just want to check with our Canadian partners and American partners, is sort of the first week in September an okay time to be running a seminar like that? In terms of participation, will folk be back from their vacations first week September?
That will be a tricky week. It's people coming back from vacations. There's a holiday in North America, Labor Day, which will probably fall in there. I'd have to look at the calendar. And it's first week of fall semester. And so, me personally, it's not a huge issue. But for anyone that has support, direct support requirements with faculty, or faculty themselves, it definitely could impact participation levels. In my opinion, I'd allow others to chime in.
Yeah, no, that's valuable feedback, Brian. So what we're saying is we need to shift that on a bit, right?
I see the DS4OER MOOC schedule, which is great for me in Australia. I don't know about others, but that's, I guess, the challenge with shifting the scope is we probably don't want to really get it entangled with the running the DS4OER if there's going to be some of our experienced folk kind of involved in both.
Yeah, I mean, the challenge, of course, is getting things done before the meeting. So, the online scope seminar is typically, 3 or 4 days. It's not that intensive. I mean, what I'm thinking in terms of proposing is shifting the scope seminar to week 2 in September. Would that at least help a bit, Erwin, Brian, Mark?
I would say second week is preferable to the first week. Again, if Mark or Erwin have thoughts, I would certainly defer.
I agree. I think in terms of timing, I'd agree with Brian.
Yeah, we might even have a look to see if you see, because if we run it, I mean, what we can do is, because we work openly and transparently, is maybe run that scope seminar the 3rd week in September. The issue there is, and then getting the inputs of the management committee into the shaping the agenda. So I've got the OERu MC meeting scheduled that 2nd week. So we could maybe run the scope seminar that 3rd week, or is that getting a bit close to the October meeting? It seems to me, I think we're going to have to take the lesser of two evils here and maybe run that scope seminar the 2nd week in September, because otherwise we're not going to have enough time to get that agenda circulated for the partners meeting the 2nd week in October. Because there's actually quite a bit of work in terms of setting up the website and having it ready for the remote participants and that sort of thing. So my proposal is we move the scope seminar to the 2nd week in September, bar any major objections from the floor. And then again, an open question for discussion: is it worthwhile running I'm thinking of folk that are actually working on course developments, the Digital Skills for Collaborative OER development, which is actually a full-blown simulation of a course development using the technologies we use at the OERu.
I'm really keen on having it run again, and we're already toying with maybe just running it locally, like the materials are there at any time, but just trying to have a local cohort because of the amount of interest. But again, the timing as it's proposed is okay, but it's right in the thick of semester for Australian learning, so whether or not there's a whether or not that's good or bad, I guess you've just got to do workshops and training programs at some point, and that particular timing is sort of it's our week 7, so we're still in the thick of session teaching, so it's
not ideal.
The demand that we've had is for more library and instructional design staff, and also some, interestingly enough, PhD students who are looking at outputting materials. So it may not be a problem, but we wouldn't probably capture a lot of teaching staff running it in that time frame. But then, you know, one cannot shove all of that into November when people are marking exams and, you know, going to conferences and so on. So there's just never a perfect time, is there?
Yeah. So, I mean, maybe the best way to deal with the Ds for OER micro course is, you know, we set up a survey, go to the network and say, hey, we're planning on running one of these things. If you'd like to attend, which of the following dates work best for you? And then take that decision on the feedback we get. Is that a good way to move this forward?
It can't hurt. It definitely cannot hurt to do it that way. Yeah.
And Wayne, I think also that one concept of the sort of action calendar for OERu was to help the management structure of what are the key milestones. For example, the meetings in South Africa and the like, and to embed, you know, a calendar for meetings of the management committee. And it may be that there's a sort of management action calendar, as it were, and also the delivery like an academic calendar. So when we get back to actual course delivery, we could possibly embed the DS4 OER in that, so that we have an academic calendar for delivery to students in the broadest sense. And then we have another focus on, you know, what are the key dates for, you know, the annual report, and in relation to that would be to schedule OER ManCom on a more regular basis, like quarterly, or as you've done here, just even put out a calendar in advance. And that would presumably help the working groups to work towards those key milestones. I think there's a danger in having a calendar that becomes too comprehensive. So my suggestion is to consider, you know, having a sort of management calendar for development and the like, and then a delivery academic calendar that flows from that. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, Jim, I think that's a good suggestion. And if there are no objections from the floor, I'm going to take that as a recommendation that we have, you know, a separate calendar which has got, you know, the more academic focus, and then the, you know, sort of management committee calendar around the key outputs our group are, you know, are working on in terms of preparing for the October meetings. I'll take silence to mean assent there. Thanks for that, Jim. That's a good suggestion. Okay, so in terms of action items for the conveners is you know, is to have a look and populate your meeting dates so around the management committee related activities. So we've got that scheduled to, you know, so we can prepare ourselves for the October meetings. Great. So let's move on to the next item on the agenda, and this is also related in part to our maturation and growth. To date, we've maintained two community lists. One which is the OERu Partners list, which is hosted using Mailman, which is a very sophisticated, robust, and scalable piece of technology, and the Community Partners list, which has been running on Google Groups. And obviously, as an open organization, we are not entirely comfortable with using non-free technology for, you know, hosting enterprise infrastructure. So we've been doing a little bit of thinking around reconfiguring the technologies we're using for communicating with each other. One of the challenges with Mailman, despite, you know, being a very powerful piece of technology, is that the administration interface is not that easy for noobs to use. And I think it's important for the members of our management committee, the conveners, to have the ability to manage their own groups. And so we've taken a decision to install a new site called groups.oeru.org, which I think you've all, in fact, have interacted with already. For managing the group discussions. It's a great piece of open source technology. It sort of combines an email list with a forum, and its administration interface is actually quite easy to use. It's not a difficult piece of technology. So we are going to progress the discussions of our individual working groups using this technology. And I'll come back to a couple of points about that in a moment. The other remark, just based on our experience of running the two OERu lists, by and large they have functioned really as announcement lists rather than actual community lists. And I don't think we've really done a good job of building the community. And now with the new partner engagement group, I think we have a unique opportunity to start thinking about building community and the technologies we're using to communicate with each other to build community. And that relates to item 8 on the agenda, discourse, which is a very interesting piece of open source technology. So I just want to put that in context, because the proposal is that I'm putting forward is that we discontinue the two existing lists, the OERu partners list and the OERu list on Google Groups, and replace that with an announcements group. Where am I? Here we are. So we just have an announcements and news group, which is kind of just a bit of a one-way communication, and that the community building type of conversation we shift onto discourse. We'll talk about that in a moment. So at this point, I just want to get your feedback. Is this a good thing to be doing? I'm particularly keen to have the discussions of the working groups in a central place rather than personal email, because it's very hard to keep track, with what is going on. And this would be an effective way that anybody who wants to be part of any working group can actually see what the conversation is, and then we've got points of reference to be able to point back to. So I appreciate your general feedback on this suggestion relating to the implementation of groups.oeru.org.
Wayne, I haven't, I'm not familiar with this program myself, but I wonder about how it archives conversations and things. Does it require a person to actually organize the materials, or is it automatically organized?
Oh no, it's all done automatically. I can show you by way of example. So if you look there, I populated a number of posts which you would have received via email. So there is a web version of all the topics and the individual posts which are made. So it's an archive record. That's all done automatically when you reply to the list from your email. There's a web archive that's created, and that's of course searchable. So I think that's better than what we had, right?
Yes. Very good.
Hello all, it's Dave Lane here from Christchurch. I'm just wanting to mention, as someone who has quite a bit of familiarity with the online groups.net system, which is the basis for this groups.oeru.org email and web-based mailing list system, it has the ability to allow you to interact with it entirely via email, but it also has the ability for you to interact with it entirely via the web as well. Or some mixture of the two, depending on your comfort levels. One of the other things that may be a little bit unexpected is that if you send an email with an attachment, it will actually strip the attachment and hold it as a artifact, a digital artifact, associated with your list in an archive, and if you then receive the email that would have otherwise had the attachment on it, you'll be able to just simply click a link in the email instead and download it, rather than having to have it downloaded. For some people who are on slower connections, they don't end up having to download the attachment as well to be able to read the email. So it also serves to provide a useful store for all of the attached documents so that you can refer back to them via a URL.
Yeah, Dave, that's a great feature, and already we've been using that with the PDF documents we distributed for this meeting. So it's a neat tool.
I'd have a question about this, and I'm all in favor of a better tool here. So, but the thing I'm wondering about is that I know that one of the communities is the broad one that just goes to, I don't know, I think we have quite a few hundred members of it, that was built up over the early days of the growth of OERu. And I'm just wondering, is there a risk of losing some of the people in that group, or will there be a way of moving them all over, or will that be an invitation that's sent out to them, or how do we plan to transition?
Owen, that's a very good point. I mean, I think there needs to be a planned migration path around the communications, the support. It's not something we just turn a switch, right?
Right.
I think there needs to be an ongoing conversation, and of course there will be an archive of all the discussions we've had to date, and we set up the pages of where people can access those archives. But I mean, I think that's a very important point, is that we think very carefully about the migration part to the new technologies.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry. Maybe one additional point about that is if communication starts going out about the migration, that maybe strategically we can have an opportunity there to welcome people or invite people to participate in various entry-level roles within the OERu, or at least receive updates or things of that nature. So there could be a side benefit to kind of this communication refresh to the world out there.
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, Wayne, just Dave Lane here again. Just for what it's worth, it is possible to actually, I'm saying this just because I've been involved in a number of other migrations to onlinegroups.net, this same platform. It is possible to relatively easily migrate the entire archive of the previous lists into online groups, and then therefore make it searchable and so on as well. And the normal practice when migrating large subscriber groups to a new online groups list is that you submit. You can transfer the entire membership. However, typically they will get an invite initially, rather than just being transparently included in the new list, just because it then allows them to reaffirm their desire to participate. The goal of online groups is to avoid implicitly or forcing people to opt out rather than opting in. It's very privacy conscious. The other aspect of the online group system that might be useful to know about is that you can have multiple emails associated with your account, and so oftentimes migrations from, for example, mailman-based lists will cause slight problems because people will be signed on or be subscribed to mailman lists with multiple email addresses, because mailman has a different user model for managing which email addresses you can send from to the list, for example, and which email addresses you receive posts to the list from. So online groups offers a much richer interface for managing that. So yeah, that's the main reason that invites are sent, so that people don't inadvertently get signed on with emails going to multiple email addresses when they actually only want to receive email at one.
Right. Oh, sounds good.
Oh, I wasn't aware of the migration capabilities between mailman and online groups.net, so that's very good to know. Google Groups to online groups?
I'm not absolutely sure. I think Google Groups is a little bit different, although actually, come to think of it, I believe Google does have a global policy of making it possible to export your content from any Google owned service, although that may only be for personal content, so I'm not absolutely sure if that would extend to, for example, exporting or making exportable entire archives from Google Groups. Of course, they also acquired Google Groups. It was previously something else. I forget what. Oh, it was actually some of the old Usenet groups. But anyway, I don't know if they actually have an ability to export all of those. I can certainly find out from the developers of the online groups software whether that is possible, and I can report back.
Yeah. Well, that will be. So, I mean, I think what we need to do is kind of develop a technical migration plan, so to speak, and then the people migration plan about how we manage this moving forward. But I mean, even just myself, having online groups, to coordinate this meeting, it's just been such a big difference in terms of saving my own time in helping to manage this process. So, I mean, I think it's going to help us, and it will help our individual conveners in keeping these conversations together, because trying to manage personal emails with this sort of thing, it's effectively not doable. It doesn't work well. So in relation,
I'd agree with all of that, Wayne, and I think also having a site which creates easy access to the workings of each of the groups, in that central page that was just online there. I think that's a big step forward, aligned with the sort of quick links access to, what's happening in the network. That the groups page there that you've got up, the public groups, I think that's a real benefit for saving time and enhancing communication. So I think we should move as quickly as we can to this, and sounds like the partner engagement group involvement, which highlights the benefit of this management committee being able to bring the technical perspectives together with other groups with different interests. So I think there's a benefit in that also. Thanks.
Yeah. No, thanks for that, Jim. I mean, and as you pointed out, each of these groups has got a succinct summary of what they do, which then links back to the actual planning pages in the wikis. So that's definitely a benefit of the technology. So in relation to this point is what I'm going to ask each of our conveners to do is, obviously you've registered on the site now because you're all members of this group, and part of community building is for people to see profiles. So I'm going to request that you just fill out your profile page on onlinegroups.net, just upload a picture, and then, even if you're just linking back to wherever you prefer to have your bio hosted, if you could do that. And what I'm going to request that you do, and this is an item you can discuss at your individual meetings, is that you appoint co-moderators for the groups.oeru.org. Because the default setting I'm going to recommend for the technology is that the first time a person registers is that the email is moderated. And this has got nothing to do with moderating what people are saying. It's just I've found that sometimes people post a personal email and they don't realize that they're posting to a list. And then it's just an opportunity to point out, hey, this is a community list. When you're posting here, make sure that it's public, right? And I've found that works pretty well, and it also is a good mechanism for managing any trolls that we might pick up. We've had a couple in the past, and it's moderating that first post is always a good technique. So when appointing co-moderators, if we can try and find somebody in a different time zone, so that if a message comes in, that initial message, and it's only just once, I mean, there's not a big workload issue, can just approve that post. What I'm also going to ask each of our conveners to do is to actually administer the process of getting people registered. So the individual members in your working groups, that you actually take on that process of getting folk registered on this technology. And the registration process is very simple. I'm happy to walk anybody through that process. It's basically once you're registered, you signed in, you go to your individual group as I'm here, and on the right-hand side there is a link here to invite someone new to join, and I'm going to suggest use this link because you can use a personal message. I'm going to advise against bulk invites and forcing membership. It's just not good practice to do that, and each working group is small enough, it's 8 or 10 people, it's not that much to actually get that done, and you simply go to invite somebody, you fill out the name, you fill in the email, you can write a little message, and then they will receive an email which invites them to join. And the way you would have seen how I did it with this group is I first sent out a personal email to you all saying, hey, we're setting up this new cool technology, you'll be receiving an invite, please follow through on that. So I'm going to request that you actually invite each of the members of your working groups to join. And the other link which is extremely useful here is managing the members. Now I'm going to show this publicly. I mean, we all are, this wouldn't be available to non-administrators, but because it's the management committee group, we all know who's on this group, so I'm not breaking any sort of privacy issues here. But you'll see a number of options here. The default setting for the groups is to moderate the first post. Once a person has posted, you just go here, and there'll be a link here to or checkbox where you can stop the moderation once somebody has actually posted. So it's pretty straightforward, and this is one of the advantages of using this technology. It's not as hard as Mailman to actually work with the administration interface. So that's the request. I've got the list of things which I would appreciate if each of the conveners of the working groups could do to get their groups up and running. And it does need a little bit of hand-holding. There is a feature here that if folk haven't responded, that you can send the invitation again. And just to slowly help folk get registered. It's because it will save you tons of time down the track in trying to do this via email. So the initial investment of getting people signed up is well worth it in the long run. So let me just leave that there for the time being. If there are any comments, questions, objections?
Can I just make one very quick comment, Wayne? Dave Lane here again. Just wanted to mention that something that may be a little bit weird for people if they perhaps are already involved or have already got an account on a different online groups list, even if it's got a different domain name associated with it. So in our case, we've got groups.oeru.org, but you may well be on other lists through completely different circles that maybe also use this platform, and you may find that your accounts are effectively that because your email address that you've been invited with to this group or this set of groups is the same email address as you use for receiving other lists, you may find that those accounts are sort of linked. That can be a little bit weird for people initially, so just don't be alarmed if it turns out that your profile for this groups.oeru.org also lists other lists that you're involved in that may not be related to OERu.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dave. I discovered that myself because I happen to be on the CCANZ list, which is also hosted here, and I figured that out by But I mean, it's a good point. I think in the sort of the people side of this migration, that we maybe have a resource page or something which just talks people through this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, the beauty of it is, of course, if you go on holiday and you don't want your inbox filled with all these emails, you can temporarily turn off all email from all lists that are sent by this platform rather than just the OERu related ones.
Yeah, yeah. So any other comments from the floor? Are you comfortable with us moving this technology forward, and for the conveners just to take on that role of getting your groups up and running? I'm hearing silence, so that's a good sign. Okay.
Well, just Wayne, if I could, just so
Sure.
I understand, I looked at the larger calendar, and is there a sort of a goal for that first convening of each group, or you know, obviously prior to September, but any other preferences? You know, I guess we should coordinate with one another to make sure we're not all doing it on the same day, because Wayne, you'd be sort of busy that day.
Yes, I'm pretty flexible. By and large, I can attend most of these meetings in terms of how they're scheduled. I mean, I just recommend you know, setting up some technology somewhere where folk can actually indicate the availability and times. You know, whether it's a doodle, which is, you know, proprietary. But Dave, I think there might be open alternatives which you might look at in the future. But, you know, just having a place where people can actually say, hey, you know, these are the times that I will be available, helps a lot, instead of trying to do it via email, because the challenge with this sort of thing is most of our users don't think of the international context of the OERu. So when you send an email out to, you know, a bunch of folk with their whole different time zones, and they get totally confused, and so it's useful if the person that is receiving the invite knows their local time that you're suggesting. And so that's a little bit of extra sort of admin and thinking on our side, but it's just because many of our new participants in these working groups don't realize how international the OERu is. We literally span 24 time zones, and so there's a little bit of hand holding initially, you know, to help folk come up to speed with that. Yeah. But Mark, to answer your question specifically, I mean, if at all possible, it would be good if we could have the convenings of each of these groups during July before our next management committee meeting. So there might be attendance challenges for the folk that are on vacation, but we've just got to figure out how to move forward.
Understood. All right, thank you. That's helpful.
Right. Okay. So the next item on the agenda is discourse.org, and the thinking here is to actually use Discourse, which is an open source technology platform. Their strapline is, you know, it's been designed for the next decade of the internet. And I have to say, it's actually an impressive piece of technology from a user interface perspective. The whole Discourse platform is structured as a conversation rather than a forum. It's also got a number of features that build on gaming theory and karma, so that, you know, as you gain experience within the community, you get to do you know, more interesting things within the community. And so our thinking is to actually shift the whole sort of community discussion and community engagement of the wider community, both partners and the open community that we have assisting us with the OERu, onto the discourse.org platform. Our thinking around this at this point in time is to actually host the technology ourselves. And thanks to Brian and others who pointed us to some extremely affordable sort of hosting solutions, for example, at reclaimhosting.org, which I don't know how, we certainly wouldn't be able to match those prices by hosting ourselves. But the rationale for hosting ourselves is potentially this is a technology that can actually support our OERu learners with their interactions. And we would like to get a little bit of experience ourselves with the technology around its strengths, its weaknesses, its idiosyncrasies from an administration point of view, which would help us take a more informed decision as to whether this potentially is a technology that can support OERu learners in the courses in the future. So we're planning to set up a subdomain community.oeru.org, which will run a hosted instance of discourse.org. So, Dave, I'm not sure if you want to say anything. I know you having a look at the technology and exploring the installation. And, of course, we're more than happy to open the floor to any members of the management committee.
Yes, I'm just dipping my toe in the water of discourse configuration and so on. So I'm at a fairly early stage, and also getting my head around the way that some of the infrastructure that the OERu uses is set up. So I haven't quite got to the point of being able to get it going yet, but it's I would expect that it would be within a week or so to be able to have a working instance of it. And yeah, it does look like a very impressive platform. So if anyone has any questions, let me know.
Yeah, and what I'd like to suggest is that we maybe use the management committee as a sort of a very early prototyping group to see how it goes, and at least get the thing populated with some discussion, before we start the bigger migration process. Any thoughts, comments, and feedback from the group?
Just a quick comment. I think Sarah's no longer with us, but her concern about how many technologies some members of the group have to deal with periodically is a consideration. And when we migrate, I think we should do it incrementally as we go, which we probably will do anyway. But I'm just conscious that the time to get comfortable with some of these is greater for some members than others. So I'd just like to highlight that in terms of our planning. Thanks.
Thanks for that, Jim. Yeah, I agree. An incremental migration process so that we don't swamp folk. That's a good point. Right. In relation to that, I think I might have missed this earlier on in the agenda. There's been some discussion on the list, and this relates to helping people get used to and engage in these technologies that we use to work and communicate with each other. And it was an idea which Sarah had proposed at the last meeting, and that was to actually develop a short micro course on an induction course, so to speak, so for new partners and new members of working groups to have a short little focused induction course of actually how the OERu operates and how we communicate with each other. And I've started some work on a potential structure, and the thinking here is just to a really short type of little course where you spend 10 or 15 minutes a day, and we actually the activities of this induction course would be, for example, setting up your profile page and, posting a comment in the wiki on an active document, and just to help people with their first steps in getting involved with the OERu, and how to navigate the site from the quick links and that sort of thing. So I'd be keen just to gauge your thoughts and feeling about progressing a little induction course, particularly now that we're going to have a whole number of new members joining our working groups.
Well, Wayne's Dave Lane here again. Selfishly, I would certainly be very keen to have that description of all of the channels through which communication takes place. I think that would be a very useful thing to provide an oversight for anyone joining the group.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I think just putting a bunch of passive content out there that people have to read on their own, it's quite a slog. So, particularly if there's a mini MOOC with a I guess a coherent cohort that are sort of interested in finishing it, it might be an effective way just to walk people through and allow them to participate in a more active way than just reading content out of the wiki.
Thanks for that, Erwin. So what I'll do is I'll share the pages with the group. I think there's been some discussion on groups.oeru.org on this. So I'll make a bit of progress on those pages, and then of course invite you to anyone in our group to just refine those pages. Take a look at the activities, see if they make sense. Because I mean, Erwin, you made the good point that, and the important point that we shouldn't overwhelm the new participants. So if we do something that's constructive, we've got a coherent cohort. It might help us save time and our respective workloads in getting people engaged in the groups. Right, I'm conscious that I'm officially 4 minutes over time. But we're pretty much through with the agenda. I just wanted, this is for noting, we will be hosting a regional meeting for the open business models, and I'm pleased to report that the University of Southern Queensland will be hosting the meeting, the Australian-New Zealand meetup on the 27th and 28th of August. University of Southern Queensland, I also just would like to acknowledge and thank their contribution to covering the travel and accommodation costs of Paul Stacey to come over and actually facilitate this meeting. Paul is actually involved with a project funded by Hewlett around developing these open business models, and we're going to be using that framework and structure for that process. I've also had a confirmation from Mary Burgess at BC Campus that they are willing to host a North American iteration of this open business planning meeting. So I'll send an email to our regional North American partners, Erwin, Mark, our folk in Alberta, and Kwantlen, about trying to find a date and hosting that. Is that something that would make sense for you guys, Erwin, Mark?
Yeah. Are we thinking of sort of the same? I think, Mark, you were in the same session that I was, that Paul delivered in Banff, right?
Yeah, that was great. That's right.
Yeah. So is that the kind of thing that we're talking about?
Oh, absolutely. So it's actually to take that and develop those business models from the perspective of OERu partners. So really a focused OERu session on what Paul ran in Banff, yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that would make sense.
And the thinking, of course, is that these, and we'll collate the two groups' outputs, that we actually present these OERu business models at the Council for CEOs meeting, so that they can actually see what the potential business opportunities are from our collaboration, and the other benefits that this collaboration has. Okay. And I can
just add briefly, sorry. The USQ planning at the moment is to have a one-day focus with Paul and the structure of getting the models up, and then to have a second day of a more open session for people, just to throw that in terms of what BC Campus might be thinking about in Vancouver. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that, John. So what I'll do is, for the North American partners, I'll just send out an email, and then we can figure out how to progress the North American meeting. Okay. So last item on the agenda there, point number 10. I've already in the action calendar noted the suggested dates for our upcoming meetings. And I assume that they should work. I'll do the usual, find a agreeable time for all of us, and take it from there. If there are no other contributions from the floor, I'm keen to adjourn. I'm running 9 minutes over time, but it's been a long agenda. Right, I take a silence to mean assent. As always, I'll start populating the minutes on this page. If you see any opportunities for improvement or where I haven't reflected the decisions accurately, to please just jump in and polish them in the wiki. And I really appreciate your time and this next phase of our journey. Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.